a real-life water tribe that still exists today with members who have adapted to survive completely submerged for hours at a time, and historic myths of sea-dwelling monsters and gods. I hope you're holding your breath because it's time to dive in. The Bajau tribe, who are still around today, pretty much never leave the sea, and they have evolved to become some of the world's best freedivers. While they don't actually live underwater, they do spend on average about 6 hours a day, or 60% of their time underwater. The members of this tribe have evolved to dive to depths of over 70 meters, that's 229.5 feet, and they are able to hold their breath for up to 13 minutes at a time. These incredible adaptations come from generations of the tribe's ancestors living on and in the water. Over time, the spleens of the Bajau people have become much larger than the average human, which allows them to take in much more oxygen when their spleens contract. The diet of the Bajau, also known as sea nomads, consists of mainly fish, which is to be expected, but a recent decline of fish in the areas where they reside, the coastal regions of Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Thailand, has unfortunately made it much more difficult for them to sustain themselves. Sea nomads typically live in one family unit consisting of 5 members, and they reside on small houseboats. These houseboats then travel together with the boats of other families, all of which come together for fishing and the organization of religious ceremonies. The Bajau learn to swim before they ever begin to walk, which is why they are so incredibly capable when it comes to maneuvering in the water. Along with the Bajau tribe, there are a few other sea tribes around. These include the Moken of southern Thailand, as well as the Orange Laut, which literally translates to the sea people. When asked how they would describe themselves, these seafaring communities often say they are born, they live, and they die on their boats, and the umbilical cords of their children are plunged into the sea. There are, however, a few exceptions to this rule, one being monsoon season, during which the Bajau people and the people of a few other Indonesian sea tribes gather on land to protect themselves from the harsh weather. It is believed that there are around 1.3 million Bajau people scattered across Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and the Philippines, and the Sultanate of Brunei, with 345,000 residing in Indonesia alone. The Bajau are considered to be the main modern-day seafaring tribe, as their numbers far exceed the numbers of other tribes like the Orange Laut, who have a population of about 420,000 worldwide and just 17,500 in Indonesia. As for the Moken people, there are only about 2,000 to 3,000 total, and they generally live off the coasts of southern Thailand and Myanmar. Although the tribes live a pretty different lifestyle than our own, they do still communicate with members outside of their own communities. In fact, the members of the Bajau and Orange Laut tribes are quite friendly, which is why sometimes people will hire them to help with fishing expeditions, since they are the experts. As I mentioned, these seafaring tribes have adapted over many generations so that they are able to better survive in the ocean. But it's not just the spleens of the Bajau that have developed to be 50% larger than their land-based neighbors, but also the eyes of specifically the Moken children, which can see twice as well underwater than the average European eye. Why? Well, because not only have their eyes adapted to allow for lesser reddening, lesser irritation, and a less intense reaction to salt water, but they have also learned to contract their eyes incredibly well underwater, which allows them to get a much clearer look at the things around them, like small shells and other easily grabbable food. The ability to maximally constrict one's eyes underwater can be learned by others, but the skill goes away if it's not used regularly, kind of like muscle mass. Furthermore, it is much more difficult for adults to achieve this ability because of the fact that after puberty, the eye somewhat hardens, making the kind of extreme contractions required for the Moken underwater supervision much more difficult. Another adaptation possessed by none other than the Bajau is their skin's ability to sustain prolonged exposure to salt water. A group of specialists who visited the tribe described a white, scale-like layer with the appearance that kind of resembles ichthyosis, which is a dermatological issue. However, it's no issue for the Bajau. In fact, it's an asset. And it doesn't last forever either. A few months of washing with fresh water and avoiding the ocean put their skin pretty much back to its original state. Another thing the Bajau peoples do to adapt to life in the sea, and more specifically their free diving activities, is pierce their eardrums. You heard me. They pierce their eardrums at an early age so that they do not have to worry about equalizing when diving down to such extreme depths. This practice does have a downside though. I mean, they're literally piercing their eardrums, so it's no surprise that it causes many of the Bajau peoples to become hard of hearing when they get a little bit older in age, but to them it seems as though the pros really do outweigh the cons here. Alright, moving on from the tribes of the sea, let's talk about the Kappas. Unlike the sea nomads, which reside in reality, the Kappa tribe lives in Japanese folklore, but they are fascinating and pretty weird nonetheless. The Kappa, which are described as green human-like beings with webbed feet and hands, view themselves as gods, and they are said to become increasingly aggressive when not treated as such. They are known for their love of cucumbers, I'm not making this up, and their fondness of sumo wrestling. But wait, there's more. These creatures are often accused of attacking humans who swim in forbidden waters. Their go-to attack? Removing a mythical organ called the Shirikodama from their victim's hind nether region. Honestly, I don't know how they come up with this stuff. Grindylows are another mythological creature, this time belonging to British folklore and originating in Yorkshire. These creatures, like the Kappas, are depicted as humanoid with webbed hands, scaly skin, a greenish complexion, and incredibly sharp claws and teeth. Sometimes they are shown with feet, sometimes a long eel-like tail, and other times with appendages resembling octopus tentacles. These creatures are said to dwell in ponds and marshes, waiting for unsuspecting young people. When one comes along, the Grindylow grabs them and drags them down below the surface of the water. Oftentimes in Yorkshire, the tail of the Grindylows is used to keep young people and those who don't quite know how to swim away from pools, marshes, and ponds for their own safety. Whether or not these creatures are real is, I guess, up for debate, but personally, I'm not buying it. The Nereids, described in Greek mythology as the female spirits of the sea, are said to be the 50 daughters of the very busy old man in the sea, Nereus, and the also very busy Oceanid Doris. They also have a brother called Nereidus, but for some reason the Nereids are much more popular, probably because there's 50 of them and only one Nereidus. Anyways, the Nereids are believed to accompany Poseidon, the god of the sea, and unlike the mythological creatures known as sirens, these creatures are said to be quite friendly and even helpful towards sailors, which makes sense seeing as they are said to be a symbol of all things beautiful and kind about the sea. These creatures are generally depicted as beautiful goddesses crowned with corals and draped in white robes, sometimes with legs, sometimes with tails, and sometimes with a combination of both. It's a real roll the dice kind of mythical creature. In Chinese culture, the worship of the 4 dragon kings is said to bring good weather and a bountiful harvest, as they are believed to be the rulers of water and weather. Each of the 4 dragon kings is responsible for governing their own corner of the Sea of China. The blue or green dragon king, Ao Guang, rules over the East China Sea. He is the essence of spring and is represented in the wood element, which symbolizes growth, health, new life, and peace. The red dragon, Ao Qin, governs the South China Sea. He is the essence of summer and is represented through fire. Since red is considered a lucky color in China, it is believed that the red dragon brings happiness, good fortune, and luck. The black dragon, Ao Shun, rules the North China Sea as well as Lake Baikal. He is the essence of winter, represented by the water element. He is believed to bring vengeance and catastrophes such as floods and storms. You do not want to mess with this guy. The 4th dragon is the white dragon, Ao Run, which governs the Lake Qinghai in the west. He is the essence of autumn and is represented by the metal element. This dragon symbolizes purity, but has also been associated with mourning and death. Now, I know I said there were only 4 dragon kings, which there are, but there are far more than 4 recognized dragons in Chinese culture. However, unlike the dragon kings believed to live in crystal castles in the oceans and lakes guarded by shrimps and crabs, these remaining dragons are believed to roam the land and skies. These are the yellow and gold dragons. The yellow dragon symbolizes royalty and is often depicted on the emperor's robes, as it is quite literally a symbol of the emperor. This dragon also represents authority, good fortune, and wisdom. And then there's the gold dragon, associated with the most powerful of deities. This dragon is a symbol of the highest forms of wealth, prosperity, strength, abundance, and power.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Chimbu skeleton tribe. One look at this tribe sends shivers down my spine, and if I saw them in the flesh, I would very much want to run away. It seems that the Chimbu tribe dress this way for special festivals, including the Mount Hagen festival. The paint was originally designed to psychologically intimidate enemies and also also to present themselves as superhuman. The tribe live in a remote mountainous region of Papua New Guinea and first made contact with the connected world in 1934, although they do remain elusive, and to be honest, painted like that, I wouldn't want to run into them. I wouldn't want to mess with them. Coming in at number 9, we have the Asaro tribe. Have a look at the Asaro tribe. Usually, I wouldn't say you should ever judge people by the way they look, but when it comes to tribes, I would say, actually, if they look threatening, that's because they want to scare you. They want to scare you off, and maybe you should be scared off. What happens if you don't heed that warning? Do you really want to find out? The Asaro tribe are also known as the Asaro Mudmen because of their masks, which are made from mud. They're also hella spooky. The story behind the mud is that one time they approached an enemy after hiding out in a muddy bank. The enemy thought that they were spirits and fled. Would you like to see them in action? The Asaro are actually pretty harmless, but their masks do make me worry. Coming in at number 8, we have the Chukchi people. The reason this tribe are on this list is because they are the only tribe in Russia that were never conquered by the Russian people, which actually must mean that they're pretty terrifying and hardcore. Historically, Russia has waged war with the Chukchi people on many occasions over hundreds of years. While some of the tribe's people were killed, they were never actually defeated. These days, they live reasonably undisturbed in the Chukchi Peninsula. This is at the very north of Russia, parallel to the top of Alaska. It is cold up there. These people survive in those climates 24/7, and to be honest, to me, that makes them pretty hardcore and not to be crossed. A ghost at number 7, we have the Night Marchers. I really enjoy this, something different for this list. Often called the Night Marchers, the Hawakapo are ancient Hawaiian warriors that now are jobbed with escorting newly dead spirits into the afterlife. These are a more musical band of Grim Reapers. The Hawakapo are also known as torchbearers, and they walk across the land carrying, you guessed it, torches, but also weapons and drums which they play and chant. There have been sightings of these ghostly torchbearers, but if you ever come across one, you must not look them in the eye, as they may mistakenly class you as someone who needs to be marched into the afterlife. That is, unless one of your relatives is in the tribe who can vouch for you. It's rules. Those are the rules. You know that the Hawakapo are nearby if you hear distant drumming in Hawaii, if you hear conch shell horns, see faint torchlight, and smell faint foul odors. Rumours and reports of torchbearer sightings have been rife over the years and are absolutely ingrained in Hawaiian folklore. Unless you want to be marched down into heaven or hell or wherever they're going, I would say stay away from the tribe. Coming in at number 6, we have the Korubo or the Dasala tribe. The Korubo, also known as the Dasala tribe, are well known for their big clubs, as in big sticks. The Korubo are one of the most isolated tribes in the world, and they do not want to be contacted. The tribe are visually scary to look at. They paint themselves with red dye made from the ruco plant. The tribe lives in the western Amazon basin and regularly have clashes with other local tribes. They use their clubs to beat people to death. They're also fond of the humble poison dart. The tribe are hostile to outsiders, and in recent history they have beat to death 3 loggers and workers from Funai, a Brazilian government initiative to protect indigenous tribes.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the Aoreo. The Aoreo people are the indigenous people of Gran Chaco, and they live in both Bolivia as well as Paraguay. There are approximately 5,600 Aoreo peoples, and while many of them ended up becoming sedentarized by missionaries in the 20th century, there are around 100 people who have still maintained the traditional nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle and remain uncontacted. The Aoreo were first contacted by Jesuits in the 1720s to try and convert people to Catholicism, and in the 1740s the mission was abandoned and the Aoreo were luckily left alone. Until the 1900s. The Chaco War between Bolivia and Paraguay brought in 100,000 troops to the territory, as well as all of the diseases they carried. Both countries saw the Aoreo as a problem, and from the 1940s to the 1970s, there was a rule where a Paraguayan soldier could be freed from service by killing one of them. At this time, Aoreo children were also being stolen, and one 12-year-old was even put on display in an exhibit. In the 1940s and 50s, the work of missionaries continued, and in the late 50s, missionaries used force and manipulation to remove the Aoreo from their land to various mission stations, and the land where they once lived was sold for cattle farming. These mission stations forced the Aoreo living in them to give up their culture including their religion, appearance, music, and diet, and missionaries sometimes convince the Aoreo living at the missions to find uncontacted Aoreo in the forest to sedentarize and convert them. And in December of 1986, that unsurprisingly turned out to be a horrible idea that led to 5 deaths. The Aoreo people who are in contact now are struggling with both poverty as well as discrimination, and the uncontacted Aoreo have 6 main threats, which are cattle farming and deforestation, sale and allocation of their territory, searches for oil, missionaries seeking contact, illegal collection of territory resources, and violation of territory by various groups. I could dive into each of these points and discuss why they are such a threat to these people, but I'll leave that for your homework because we have got to keep this list moving right along. In our number 4 spot today we have the Tagari. The Tagari are an eastern Huaorani people living in the Ecuadorian Amazon basin. This group was once a part of the Huaori families, but they separated off in 1968 after refusing missionary settlement, and since then have lived in isolation. Their name comes from one of their members' tag. There haven't been many interactions since then with other Huaorani, but the interactions that have happened are often met with violence. It is estimated that there are around 20 to 30 surviving Tagari, and they are one of the 2 remaining indigenous groups living in voluntary isolation in Ecuador. These people are semi-nomadic and live off hunting and gathering as well as a few crops. Since 2007 there has been a national policy to try and help protect them that includes untouchability, self-determination, equality, and no contact. The threats to the Tagari include illegal loggers of tropical hardwood, foreign disease, smugglers, settlers, and oil companies moving into the area with drilling taking place all over their land. In 2008, investigations began into reports that 5 Tagari people had been killed by illegal loggers. As we get closer to the end of our list, it becomes abundantly clear that many of these isolated tribes face extremely similar threats, which is quite interesting and unfortunately extremely unsurprising. In our number 3 spot today we have the Taroman. Remember in the last point about the Tagari how I mentioned that they were one of the last 2 uncontacted tribes in Ecuador? Well, this is the other one. These people live in the Yasuni National Park in the Ecuadorian Amazon basin, and this tribe also has some distant relations to the Huaorani people. There's estimated to be around 150 to 300 people in this tribe who maintain their nomadic lifestyle in the rainforest. While, like everyone else on their list, 2 of their main threats are oil developments and illegal loggers, the Taromanane have another more unexpected threat, and that is the Huaorani. In 2013, more than 20 of these people were killed by the Huaorani, which left 2 child survivors who were taken as hostages. Apparently the people who took part in this terrible tragedy bragged about it on national television at first, calling themselves brave for attacking and taking the lives of unarmed people with rifles, pistols, and long spears, and even went as far as selling photos of it to the highest bidder. There's so much to cover in regards to this one incident that I unfortunately don't have time for, but the whole situation is extremely tragic and just downright horrible. Much of these disputes stem from the land that they share because of the fact that the Taromanane have been pushed deeper into the forest from the Huaorani allowing oil companies to drill on the land. It of course is a very complicated issue that has so much more to it. In our number 2 spot today we have the Awa, are a group of people living in the eastern Amazon rainforest. There are around 350 living members, but not all of them remain uncontacted. Out of the 350, it is believed that around 100 members continue to try to remain uncontacted, although it unfortunately hasn't been as easy as it should for them. The Awa were once settled people but began to live a more nomadic lifestyle around the 1800s in order to try and escape incursions by Europeans. They were further threatened by settlers who cleared out most of the forests on their land. In 1982, the Brazilian government received a loan of $900 million from the World Bank and the European Union, but under a condition that the lands of certain indigenous peoples, including the Awa, be protected. This should have been the key to helping protect these peoples considering their lives were continually being threatened. There were many cases of tribespeople being killed by settlers, and the forest on which they depended was being destroyed by logging and land clearance for farming. Unfortunately, it took the government over 20 years to actually act on this condition, and finally in March of 2003 the Awa's land was finally distinguished. And to make matters a little worse for these peoples, there are always people who won't respect their land no matter what laws are in place. In late 2011, illegal loggers burned an 8-year-old Awa girl alive after she wandered out of her village, and a leader from another group of people said that the girl had been killed as a warning to other native peoples living in the protected area. According to the human rights organization that campaigns for the rights of indigenous tribal peoples, Survival International, the Awa are the Earth's most threatened tribe. The Awa forests are still disappearing faster than any other area in the Brazilian Amazon, and loggers still remain as their biggest threat. No industry or amount of money is worth these people's lives and their way of life, and serious action to protect them needs to be taken before it's too late. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Man of the Hole. This one is quite different from the others on this list because not only is this only one man, but we don't actually know the name of the tribe that he belongs to. It is believed that he may be the last known survivor of his people, who were probably all killed by cattle ranchers, which is absolutely devastating. Because of the fact that we do not know his name, what tribe he belongs to, or even what language he speaks, his nickname, the Man of the Hole, comes from the large holes he digs, which are created to trap animals as well as a place for him to hide, but it is also believed that these holes may have had a spiritual significance to the tribe that he belongs to. His isolated existence first became known in 1996, and it is believed that the other members of his tribe were killed in a number of clashes between the 1980s and the 1990s. One expert explains that, quote, "He should not be seen as a recluse hiding from society. The man is the survivor of genocide. He didn't choose to live alone." He lives in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, and in 2007 the Brazilian government declared that the 31 square mile area around him would be off limits to trespassing and development, and an additional 11.5 square miles was later added to that. He is often monitored from afar in order to prevent any unwelcome guests from entering his land, but despite these attempts, he was still attacked by gunmen in 2009 and thankfully managed to survive like the warrior that he absolutely is. He maintains avoiding contact with others, although he does know that he is being monitored. The Brazilian government's protection agency, FUNAI, will periodically leave him gifts of tools and seeds, and he will sometimes signal to observing teams so as to warn them of the holes he dug, so it seems as though there's some sort of trust that has been built there, which really is a nice thing to hear. In 2018, the FUNAI released a video of him with the intention of raising global awareness of the threats that face the uncontacted peoples in Brazil, and he appeared as though he may be somewhere in his 50s, but seemed in very good health.
10 is the Sentinelese, which I'm getting out of the way now, as this tribe is a fan favorite on this channel. Inhabiting North Sentinel Island in the Bay of Bengal, these tribal people have maintained an unwavering resistance to their interactions with the outside world. Their stance is clear. They'll go to extremes to protect their isolation, even taking lethal measures against trespassers. The Indian government recognized the importance of leaving them be, designated by the island's tribal reserve in 1956, essentially saying, "Hands off, everybody." Estimating their population isn't easy, naturally, with figures ranging from 15 to 500 individuals, but the probable range is about 15 to 200. These hunter-gatherers rely on bows and arrows for wildlife hunting and seafood gathering. Agriculture's role in their lives remain uncertain due to our lack of insight. And although brief contact was established in 1991, visits all halted in 97. Despite our curiosity, respecting their desire for solitude ultimately takes precedence. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 9, the Awa tribe. With a known population of roughly 350 individuals, their story is one of resilience and struggle against the encroaching tide of modernity. Despite efforts by about 100 Awa members to remain uncontacted, their isolation has been compromised over the years. Escaping European incursions in the 1800s, they transitioned to a nomadic existence, seeking sanctuary amidst the forest's embrace. Their fight for survival took a promising turn in 1982 as the Brazilian government secured funding for their protection, but bureaucracy's languid dance delayed action for over 2 decades. Tragedy looms as illegal lodgers devastate their habitat, and even a young Awa girl met an unimaginable fate at their hands. Survival International, a human rights organization, warns that the Awa stand as the most threatened tribe globally. As their forest sanctuary vanishes at an alarming rate, the urgency for action intensifies to safeguard this tribe. At number 8 is the Moxa-Titu, one of the few remaining uncontacted tribes within the Yanomami people. This group resides in a forest region riddled with illegal miners. Their untouched existence harbors profound significance, echoing the heritage of their Yanomami counterparts. Reports from contacted Yanomami mention the sporadic sightings of Moxa-Titu, yet their isolated haven is under dire threat. The swarm of illegal miners introduces lethal diseases, endangering their health. Moreover, potential interactions between the tribe and miners entail catastrophic conflicts. The miners' practices, employing high-pressure hoses and mercury, devastate the land and contaminate the rivers. This contamination wreaks havoc on the flora and fauna, the tribe's sole source of sustenance. An alarming amplification of mercury-related health concerns looms over this tribe due to the pollutants. Consequently, venturing into their untouched realm might inadvertently catalyze their downfall, emphasizing the vital importance of safeguarding their isolation amidst lurking perils. At number 7 are the Sapanawa, residing in the uncontacted frontiers stretching across Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil, existing within a region teeming with uncontacted tribes, making it a unique hub of human isolation. A tragic turn of events thrust some Sapanawa into contact in 2014 when their homes fell victim to an outsider attack, leaving them with no choice but to connect with the outside world. This catastrophe was fueled by various factors, including illegal lodgers, substance smugglers, and even heedless missionaries in the area. The consequences are dire. Not only do the outsiders disrupt their way of life, but they inadvertently carry diseases that these tribes lack immunity against. While we might harbor defenses, these tribes remain vulnerable. The complex web of issues reminds us of the delicate balance between preserving cultural isolation and addressing the grave threats that encroach upon it. At number 6 are the Toromona. The Toromona, indigenous to Bolivia, dwell near the upper Madidi River and Heath River in the Amazon Basin's northwestern region. Their isolation remains remarkably intact, barring interactions even with other indigenous groups. Notably, a Norwegian biologist's vanishing in 1997 sparked a widespread fascination with the tribe. Although sporadic sightings persisted, the Toromona's existence largely evaded verification. An intriguing account arises from the Araona people, who discussed encountering a group voluntarily detached from the world on the Manurivi River's eastern bank. Although unconfirmed, these individuals are widely believed to be the Toromona. Bolivia's move to safeguard these uncontacted tribes manifested in a 2006 administrative resolution that cordoned off a pristine zone within the Madini National Park. This refuge stands as a testament to the determination to preserve the Toromona's autonomy and secluded way of life.
Coming into number 5, we have the Surma tribe. The Surma live in the Bench Magi zone of the southern nations, nationalities, and peoples regions of Ethiopia. The tribe are particularly scary and dangerous, especially if you're an outsider like us, because instead of clubs, spears, or darts, the bands have automatic guns. Yikes. Guns aside for the moment, the tribe do have a tradition of beating one another with sticks as a rite of passage before they can officially become a man, so, as you can gather, the Surma don't shy away from violence. While the Surma do have guns and are hostile to outsiders, there aren't actually any reported instance of them shooting anyone, so I guess while things may seem barbaric to us, who are we to judge them? They probably just want to do their own tribe business and let us leave them alone. Coming in at number 4, we have the Angori sect. The Angori sect are infamous for their morbid worship practices. Now, they use a corpse during their rituals, and they often threaten to eat people. Have a watch of a CNN reporter interacting with them. Honestly, this freaked me out. Can you imagine being in this situation?
People on that side of the river are so afraid of the Agori.
That's right, he actually said that I'd be terrified. The reporter then starts asking questions which are not met with a happy response. Have a listen.
Why do
Wow! I absolutely think I'd be bricking it. The sect are very secretive and they generally shy away from interactions with others, and honestly, that's enough to make me want to stay away from them. Okay, next up, not 100% a tribe, but like a terrifying story and a terrifying jungle gang in Papua New Guinea. At number 3, we have the cargo cult. This is such a scary story. The story starts with Stephen Tarry, a man who gathered thousands of disciples in Papua New Guinea. He lured them into the jungle and encouraged them to be part of his sect. The man wore white robes and preached his own gospel while standing on a rock and calling himself, and I quote, Black Jesus. The cult lived in the jungle much like a tribe, and Tari was their leader. He would regularly lead ritual human sacrifice, which is repugnant. On one occasion, he slaughtered a virgin he called his flower girl and encouraged his following to drink her blood. One mother testified that she was made to drink her own daughter's blood. Now it seems that the tribe-like cult turned against him, and actually the leader was murdered himself in 2013. I guess he got what was coming to him. Okay, at number 2, I've put a tribe you've probably heard of, and I'm saving one at number 1 that you might not have heard of. Getting a lot of press, we have the Sentinelese tribe. So you may have heard of this tribe in regards to the recent murder of John Allen Chow. He was a 26-year-old American missionary who was sent by the All Nations group to make contact and live with amongst the tribe. Basically, they were hoping to convert them to Christianity, which really wasn't a good idea because they killed him. This is the theme with people who come too close to this tribe. Now the North Centennial Island is amid the Indian Ocean and has been home to the tribe for around 60,000 years. Until recently, the tribe has only been spotted through far-off images. But people keep getting closer and closer to them these days, and they don't like it. They've been known to fire arrows at low-flying planes. It's hard to contact a tribe who have literally no interest in communication, but most of those who have tried just haven't lived to tell the tale. Some have met their fury by accident. For example, in 2006, 2 fishermen who were illegally harvesting crabs were killed by the tribe. Now Chow, the missionary, is the most recent victim. He kept a journal of his attempts to contact the tribe, and he sang songs and offered them the Bible, but actually, instead, they shot and pierced the holy book with an arrow. I think this should have been a warning to him, but he persisted to no avail and was met with a mixture of laughter and hostility. In the end, it all got too much for the tribe, who decided to kill him. He was last seen by the crew who went with him on the adventure. He was dragged away. They said they saw him dragged away and killed, and they saw his lifeless body spotted on the shore. Gnarly. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the Korowai tribe. The Korowai tribe are one of the most feared tribes in the world. They were only discovered in 1974, and since then, encounters have been very limited. The tribe are based in Papua New Guinea, and they are known to live in trees as to have a height advantage when intruders come into their space. They are known to shoot arrows at any trespassers, and they believe that white people are actually possessed by ghosts or demons, so obviously as a white person wandering into this tribe, you can imagine what might happen to you. It is actually thought that the Korowai tribe killed Michael Rockefeller, who disappeared after attempting contact in the 1960s. Some reports say that his body was seen amid the tribe on a beach. Now, in 2014, Australian journalist Paul Raphael visited the tribe and discovered that they do still very much eat people. That's right, they cannibalize the body of people who die under mysterious circumstances. Why? Because they think that they've been possessed by a kakua. A kakua basically is a bad spirit. The logic is they must eat the kakua as the kakua ate the person who died. It's an act of revenge. Everything is eaten by the tribe except the hair, nails, and penis. Do you want to stumble across this tribe? Rather you than me.
In our number 10 spot, we have the Toromona. The Toromona are a group of people who are indigenous to Bolivia, and they live near the upper Madidi River, which is a part of the Amazon basin, and the Heath River in the northwestern area of Bolivia. There hasn't been any notable contact with this tribe aside from other indigenous tribes, but this tribe was talked about a lot when a Norwegian biologist searched specifically for this tribe for many years before he mysteriously disappeared in the region of the Madidi Park in 1997. This tribe has remained quite isolated, and the most recent known sighting in the 21st century was when the Arona people of Bolivia informed an anthropologist named Michael Brohan that they had contacted a group that was in voluntary isolation on the eastern bank of the Marini River. It wasn't confirmed that this was the Toromona tribe, but it is believed that that's who they saw. Thankfully, in 2006, Bolivia's administrative resolution created an exclusive, reserved, and untouchable portion of the Madidi National Park in order to protect the Toromona and their desires to be uncontacted. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Kawahiva. The Kawahiva peoples used to be referred to as the Rio Pardo Indians, and they are an uncontacted tribe that resides in Mato Grosso, Brazil. This group is definitely nomadic people, and so most of what we know about them comes from the things they leave behind when moving to a new place, such as arrows, baskets, hammocks, and their communal houses. It is unclear exactly when the Kawahiva people became a tribe, as our knowledge of their modern existence began in 1999, but it is believed that this group goes as far back as the 1700s. As I mentioned before, they live in communal houses and they use a primitive form of a spinning wheel in order to make string, and they use tree bark to make nets. It is very rare for a non-indigenous group to have a sighting of the Kawahiva, and neighboring tribes refer to them as either tiny people or redheads. It is believed that loggers in the area have intentionally tried to keep the Kawahiva on the run, and it is speculated by the human rights group Survival International that the women of the tribe have stopped giving birth. It is unclear exactly how many Kawahiva people there are left, but it is estimated to be around 4 separate Kawahiva bands, with maybe around 15 people in each band. Like many of the tribes on today's list, their existence is always threatened by deforestation, illegal logging, and just attempts to either kill or enslave them. In 2001, the tribe's land was put under local protection, but that protection was periodically removed by the courts before being later reinstated. And in 2012, the land was turned into an official reservation. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Caraballo. The Caraballo are a group of uncontacted people who live in the Rio Pure National Park in the southeastern corner of Colombia. The Caraballo live in at least 3 longhouses, which are usually narrow, single-room houses. They share this national park with both the Pasay and the Jumana peoples. In the last 400 years, there has been outsider contact with the Caraballo people, but not much, as the contact usually involves violent attacks by slave traders and rubber extractors, which has only increased their desire for isolation, which makes a lot of sense. It is believed that these people may refer to themselves as the Yakumo, and there truly isn't much that is known about them, which honestly is probably a good thing. In December of 2001, the president, Juan Manuel Santos, signed legal decree number 4633, which was designed to guarantee uncontacted people's rights to their voluntary isolation, their traditional territories, and even reparations if they face violence from outsiders, which really is such a great thing. While this decree alone, of course, isn't going to stop some people from illegal contact, it is nice to see that steps are being made to protect these people. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Namole, or the Namol. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this one. The Namole people are an indigenous tribe of nomadic hunter-gatherers who inhabit the remote regions of a national park in Peru, which is part of the Amazon rainforest. They are more commonly referred to as the Mashco Piro peoples, but that name was first used in 1687 to refer to those who are native to Peru, but it's actually considered a derogatory term considering the word Mashco means savages. In 1998, there was estimated to be around 100 to 250 members of this tribe, which was a welcomed increase from the 1976 estimate of somewhere from 20 to 100. The Namale peoples have actively avoided any contact with non-indigenous people, and truly, who could blame them? In 1894, most of this tribe was slaughtered by the private army of Carlos Fitzgerald, who was a rubber baron. Those who survived this attack retreated to the most remote forest areas where they could be safe. In the 21st century, there's been an increase in the sightings of people from this tribe, but they certainly still are not actively seeking any contact with the outside world. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Dalala. The Dalala are an indigenous people of Brazil living in the lower Vale do Javari in the western Amazon basin. These peoples are split into 2 groups, one splinter group led by a woman named Maya that is around 23 people, while the larger main group is around 150 people. The split between the groups came from a dispute between around 20 members, and while the larger group remains quite isolated, the smaller group has had some infrequent contact with neighboring settlements. The hunting and war weapon of choice of this tribe is the club, but they are also known to use poison darts. Both the men and women of this tribe paint themselves with red dye that is made from plants. There is little that is known about the religious or spiritual practices, but it is known that they live in communal huts, which is something that is different from many of the uncontacted tribes on today's list. This tribe is more often referred to as the Korubo people, but apparently this name was given to them by a former enemy tribe and is said to be negative and degrading, which is why we will be referring to them by the less common name of Dalala. This tribe's biggest struggle in terms of illness and death at the moment seems to be malaria. This tribe has a long history with the massacres of indigenous peoples, so it makes sense that they want to remain isolated and have not welcomed outside contact very much since the 1950s. In 1996, there began expeditions to try and make peaceful contact contact, but the Dallala are known to kill trespassers on their land, which we truly cannot blame them for, and the most recent incident of this nature came in 2000 when 3 lumbermen were killed near the native reservation. It definitely serves as a reminder to leave people who don't want to be contacted alone. If they want our influence, they know where to find us.
At number 5, the aforementioned Ayoreo, indigenous to the Gran Chaco in Bolivia and Paraguay, present a complex story. About 5,600 years ago, Ayoreo individuals exist today, with roughly 100 adhering to the traditional nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle, untouched by modern society. Their history is marked by both contact and isolation. See, back in the 1700s, Jesuits aimed to convert them to Catholicism, but left them alone after the mission's abandonment. Fast forward to the 1900s, and the Chaco War introduced diseases and turmoil, portraying the Ayoreo tribe as obstacles to both Bolivia and Paraguay. Soldiers were even encouraged to eliminate these tribesmen for their release. Missionaries' actions from the 1940s to the 1970s coerced Ayoreos from their land, eradicating their culture. The tragic event of 1986 exposed the perils of forced contact, and today, both contacted and uncontacted Ayoreos face threats like deforestation, territorial disputes, oil exploitation, and discrimination. Delving into these threats would be fascinating, but let's maintain our pace. At number 4, the Carafawiana people are an extremely small group of only 50 people who remain extremely uncontacted, and so information on this particular tribe is quite scarce. They're located within the Amazon regions of Brazil, so like many of the other tribes that live in that area, they're threatened by illegal lodging, oil companies, and destruction of their land. It's believed that they practice a religion that's based on the other living creatures and things around them, such as plants and animals, but the specifics of this religion remain a mystery. They are a nomadic group of hunter-gatherers, and it's unclear if they partake in any kinds of agriculture or horticulture. While it would of course be super interesting to know about this tribe and their people, it's kind of refreshing to hear about a tribe we know so little about because they have mostly been left alone. Of course, that doesn't mean the outside world has been great to them, but just less worse. At number 3, the Mabuti tribe are an indigenous group in the Congo region of Africa. They are a contacted group, but they remain in voluntary isolation to continue their traditional ways of life. They are hunter-gatherers who see the forest as their protector. The forest is actually the basis for all of their mythology and spiritual beliefs, which is super cool. They live in villages, and each of these huts houses one family unit. They live in a fairly equal society, but they do have leaders, usually the men who are the best hunters. Despite remaining isolated, they do sometimes offer trades with outsiders and other indigenous tribes. The Mbuti are threatened for a few reasons because their territory is unprotected. Not only are they no longer allowed to hunt large game on their own land because of deforestation, gold mining, and modern influences from plantations, agriculturists, and efforts to conserve the forest, their food supply is threatened. If that wasn't enough, they've also been targets of mass euthanization campaign, which is absolutely horrifying. At number 2, the Dallala are an indigenous group of people in Brazil living under the lower Val do Javari in the western Amazon basin. These people are split into 2 groups, one splinter group led by a woman named Maya that's around 23 people, while the larger group is around 150. The split between these groups came from a dispute between around 20 members, and while the larger group remains quite isolated, the smaller group has had some infrequent contact with neighboring settlements. The hunting and war weapon of choice of this tribe is the club, but they're also known to use poison darts. Both the men and women of this tribe paint themselves with red dye that's made from plants. There's little that's known about their religious or spiritual practices, but it's known that they live in communal huts, which is something that's different from many of the uncontacted tribes in today's list. This tribe has a long history with the of indigenous people, so it makes sense that they want to remain isolated and have not welcomed outside contact very much since the 1950s. In 1996, there began expeditions to try and make peaceful contact, but this tribe are known to eliminate trespassers on their land, which we cannot truly blame them for, as the most recent known incident of this nature came in the year 2000 when 3 lumbermen were eliminated near the native reservation. At number 1, the Nukak are a tribe who live in the depths of the tropical forest, just on the fringe of the Amazon basin. They're nomadic hunter-gatherers, and they practice small-scale shifting horticulture. This tribe is a little different than the others on this list because of the fact that they aren't exactly considered uncontacted anymore. They were uncontacted up until about 1981 when they were contacted by the new tribe's mission, which is now called Ethnos 360. And since then, they've lost at least half of their tribe, mostly due to disease. Much of their territory has been used by coca growers, ranchers, and other settlers, as well as being occupied by guerrillas, army, and paramilitaries. Many of the Nukak still still live their traditional lifestyles, but because of the growing threats to them, in 2006, a group of around 80 tribe members left the jungle to assimilate in an attempt to preserve their culture. One of the people in this group explained, "We do want to join the white family, but we do not want to forget the words of the Nukok." The uncontacted tribes scattered across the world are more than just mere curiosities. They represent living testaments to the diversity of human culture and adaptability of humanity. It's imperative that we uphold their right to remain undisturbed, respecting the choices they have made for their own existence. As we contemplate the mysteries of these uncontacted tribes, let's let their stories serve as a reminder of the delicate balance between curiosity and responsibility. Preserving their way of life ensures that the rich tapestry of human heritage remains intact for generations to come, fostering a world where diversity is cherished.